Theory of Knowledge, or TOK, plays a special role in the diploma programme. It is one of the core elements undertaken by all DP students and is a course about critical thinking and inquiring into the process of knowing rather than about learning a specific body of knowledge. The TOK course asks students to think about how knowledge is arrived at in various disciplines, what the disciplines have in common and the differences between them. It also explores how individuals and communities construct knowledge, encouraging students to reflect critically on their own beliefs and assumptions. It is important to note that the TOK course is not meant to be a technical, philosophical investigation into the nature of knowledge. The subject guide suggests the metaphor of knowledge as a map, and adopting a slightly broader conception of knowledge, such as this, can be very helpful to students, particularly at the start of the course. The metaphor of a map is particularly useful as it can be expanded to include the idea of the need for different maps for different purposes. It is important that any TOK course explores both personal and shared knowledge. A course which focuses almost exclusively on shared knowledge risks losing the important links between the areas of knowledge and the individual knower, and is likely to lack relevance for the student. In contrast, a course which focuses almost exclusively on personal knowledge will move beyond the experiences of the student to how knowledge is constructed in the wider world, and is likely to end up engaging in an exploration of knowledge which is more anecdotal than analytical. It is also important that students appreciate the overlap and interaction between shared and personal knowledge. Much personal knowledge arises from shared knowledge, and shared knowledge, although public in nature, is constructed by individuals working alone and with others. One of the central skills TOK students need to develop is the ability to formulate and explore knowledge questions. Dealing with knowledge questions is at the heart of both of the TOK assessment tasks, so it is vital that students have a clear understanding of what is meant by this type of question. Knowledge questions have three central features. Firstly, they are questions about knowledge. Secondly, they are also open questions, in the sense that there are a number of plausible answers to them. Thirdly, knowledge questions are expressed using general terms such as certainty, truth, or evidence, rather than using discipline-specific terminology. Knowledge questions are therefore different from many of the questions students deal with in their subject classrooms. This difference can be seen by looking at some examples. In this example, the first question is not a knowledge question because it is too specific and is a technical question within the discipline of psychology. However, the second question is a knowledge question because it is concerned with the more general question about the methods of gaining knowledge in the human sciences. In this next example, the first question is not a knowledge question because it is a specific question about economics. However, the second question is a knowledge question because it is a more general question about knowledge. You can see that the knowledge question uses much more general terminology, such as judgment and experts, rather than the discipline-specific terminology of the first question. The TOK course identifies 8 specific ways of knowing. It is not expected that teachers will have the time to cover all 8 of these in detail. The subject guide suggests that exploring 4 of these 8 would be appropriate, although some teachers may choose to cover more than 4. Whichever ways of knowing are chosen for exploration, it is important that TOK teachers ensure that they explore these ways of knowing from the perspective of their contribution to understanding different areas of knowledge. The TOK assessment task will require students to discuss ways of knowing within the context of different areas of knowledge rather than in isolation, so it is important that this is reflected in the teaching of the course. The Theory of Knowledge course distinguishes between 8 different areas of knowledge. As with the ways of knowing, it is not expected that teachers will explore all 8 of these in detail. It is suggested that studying 6 of these 8 areas would be appropriate. Within these broad areas of knowledge, students should also be encouraged to think about examples from individual disciplines. This encourages them to think about the nature of knowledge in their own specific IB subjects, such as chemistry, geography or music. One particularly effective device for exploring the areas of knowledge is a knowledge framework. The knowledge framework suggested in the subject guide breaks each area of knowledge down into a complex system of 5 interacting components. 1. Scope, motivation and applications. This element of the framework focuses on exploring what the particular area of knowledge is all about. It explores questions such as what makes this particular area of knowledge important, or whether there are ethical considerations which limit the scope of the inquiry in this area. 2. Specific terminology and concepts. This element of the framework explores the role which language plays in the accumulation of knowledge in a particular area of knowledge. It investigates the key concepts and terms which shape the area of knowledge, as well as the role of features such as convention or metaphor. 3. Methods used to produce knowledge. This element of the framework focuses on the methodology of the different areas of knowledge, and also on the assumptions that underlie those methods. It explores questions such as what counts as an explanation or a fact in a particular area of knowledge, or the role particular methods such as observation or modelling play in producing knowledge in different areas. 4. Key historical developments. Areas of knowledge change over time, and this element of the framework provides an opportunity for discussion of some of the key historical developments in each of the areas. It is important to avoid turning TOK lessons into overly lengthy, detailed descriptions of the historical developments of different areas of knowledge, something which can be avoided by ensuring that the discussions focus on how these key developments have impacted specifically on the production of knowledge. 5. Interaction with personal knowledge. The 5th and final element of the framework focuses on the links to personal knowledge and the interactions between shared and personal knowledge in the area. It explores issues such as the contribution of individuals to the area, as well as the question of what impact this area of knowledge has on us and the way that we view the world. The knowledge framework helps to provide a vocabulary and structure to help students unpack areas more effectively. The framework helps students to identify the key characteristics of each area of knowledge and is a useful tool for encouraging systematic comparisons between the different areas of knowledge. The framework is not intended to be used in a formulaic or restrictive way, but is instead intended solely as a useful tool to help students and teachers with their explorations of different areas of knowledge. The framework is also a useful way to engage other DP teachers with the TOK course by encouraging them to make links to the different elements where appropriate in their subject lessons. The TOK course is assessed through an oral presentation and an essay. The presentation is assessed by the teacher and subject to moderation by the IB. The essay is externally assessed by the IB and must be on one of the prescribed titles issued by the IB for each examination session. Both TOK assessment tasks focus on knowledge questions. However, the essay and presentation have different starting points. The emphasis in the TOK presentation is on demonstrating an understanding of knowledge at work in the world, and it is rooted in a discussion of a specific real-life situation. In contrast, the TOK essay involves discussion of a prescribed title which is more conceptual in nature. Here is an example of a TOK prescribed title which illustrates the conceptual nature of these titles. Both the essay and the presentation are assessed using a system of global impression marking. In previous versions of the TOK course, the assessment tasks were marked using a number of separate criteria. From 2015 onwards, this system has changed to global impression marking, where the assessment is a process of holistic or global judgment, rather than an analytical process of totaling the assessment of separate criteria. The mark bands for each assessment task, in effect, represent a single holistic criterion applied to the piece of work as a whole. Here is the assessment instrument for the TOK essay, which can be found in the subject guide. At the top you will see the question: does the student present an appropriate and cogent analysis of knowledge questions in discussing the title? This question underpins the global impression judgment of the essay. The instrument then identifies two key areas on which a judgment is made: understanding of knowledge questions and quality of analysis of knowledge questions. Although these two aspects are identified separately, they are integrated together into 5 levels of performance. In this way, the examiner makes a holistic judgment on the essay as a whole, rather than treating these two aspects as two separate criteria. At the bottom of the diagram, you will see some possible characteristics. These are not meant to be thought of as a checklist of attributes. They are intended only as helpful indicators which may be characteristic of work achieving a particular level. Here is the assessment instrument for the TOK presentation. It is in the same format as the one for the essay, but the fundamental question underpinning the judgment has changed to: does the presenter succeed in showing how TOK concepts can have practical application? This reflects the difference in emphasis between the essay and presentation highlighted earlier. One of the key points to note from this diagram is the importance of ensuring that students focus their presentation on exploring a knowledge question which is clearly connected to the real-life situation they have chosen. This focus on the knowledge question is what turns the presentation from being just an interesting presentation into a TOK presentation. More information about the TOK course can be found in the subject guide and teacher support material. The teacher support material includes a number of helpful resources, such as assessment samples, advice on putting a TOK course together, and a database of useful resources. Thank you.